Hello, I'm Christina Lambert. I'm your commission president, sitting in for Mayor Keith James today as we convene as the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency. Today is July 1st, 2019, and it is 4:01 p.m. See, so we don't do the Pledge of Allegiance at the CRA. Okay. At this time, we'll take comments from the public for non-agenda items. I don't see any. No, Madam Clerk? Okay, thank you. So then comments from the board. Commissioner Riles, we'll start with you. Thank you. Commissioner Schoaf?
Mr. Ward, if you might, last we gave an update to the public on the anchor site. It was set to come before us today, and I understand there's been a few delays. If we could get an update on that for everyone, please.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, Commissioners, it was our intention to get the anchor site agreement on this agenda. We had a delay in preparing the documents. They were sent to the developer last week. It's our anticipation that we'll have it on the, we'll call a special meeting on the 15th, and we will have it on that agenda. Thank you.
Commissioner Nearing?
Thank you, Madam President. Just two quick questions, Mr. Ward, in terms of updates. Any progress with the corner store there on 7th and Tamron?
Madam President, Commissioner, it is my pleasure to report to you that we went to a particularly enjoyable event in the park right outside the Sunset on Saturday. And when I went over there, the painter was inside working on the store. As we went there, I went back by to check out the site on Sunday. They were working in the store on Sunday as well. So it's our understanding that they're making all efforts to get the thing buttoned up. I think it's down to paint and hanging the fixtures now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ward. And then just maybe just a quick 30-second update on the Sunset and just the progress.
Madam President, Commissioners, the Sunset has, I think we're about finished with phase one, the selective demolition, the replacement of the existing roof, the barrel roof on top has been finished. I have gotten the guaranteed maximum price from our contractor, the suggested one. I also got an opinion from our architects, and my staff have been looking at the price. I'm not prepared to give you that price yet because I think there's some more work to be done on it. It is my intention to try, and if I can have it to you on the 15th, I'm saying the 15th, I'm going to call a special meeting for the second meeting of the month, and I don't know if that's the 15th or it's more or less the 15th, second week. If we can get our differences on that, then I will bring that to you then to show you. We've got the pricing. We've been back to the subcontractors more than twice for numbers and stuff, so we're close to getting going on that. And if we can agree on the price and approve it and move it forward, we'll start construction 1st of August. It's going to be a 12 to 15 months construction period, so I would say fall of next year we'll be open and running. And with regard to that then, we're already engaged with the operations piece, and we're looking at operations folks for food and beverage and all that sort of thing now. So we're already moving forward on trying to look at how we're going to engage in operations after the construction's finished. But right now I'm still we're still negotiating with our contractor.
Thank you.
Commissioner Peduzzi? I don't have anything. Okay. And thank you, Mr. Ward, for those updates. I couldn't make it on Saturday evening, but I saw photos from the event that you just referenced in front of the Sunset Lounge. Any summary of just how that went? I mean, the photos looked like it was extremely well attended.
Madam President, Commissioners, I can say that anyone that knows former Mayor Moyo knows that she likes to dance, and she was there when it closed at 11, still dancing. So that to me would indicate a successful event. Everybody seemed to have a good time. It's my understanding from the promoter that all of his vendors sold out of food, and they loved the show. Commissioner Riles was there. Perhaps he can give you a comment, but I think it was a real good event, and everybody had a good time. No negative events coming out of it, or I haven't heard anything.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Ward, are there any additions, deletions, or reorganization of the agenda?
Madam President, if it pleases the commissioner, I'd like to pull item number 4 from today's agenda. We've had some changes in the suggested program that is mentioned there. So if we could pull that, and I'll bring that back to you at the next meeting with the corrections.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that?
I believe you have to approve the agenda as modified. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Right now, or when the item comes up?
You can just move that item to the next agenda when the item comes up.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And item number 2, we have the consent agenda minutes from the CRA meeting of June 3rd, 2019. Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move approval of minutes from the CRA held on June 3rd, 2019.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to presentations. We have item number 3, presentation of 3 concepts of the sale of 520 Northwood Road and confirmation of staff's recommendation for contract award to Skunk Works LLC.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Commissioners. Sarah Blake, CRA Project Manager. And this is to go over 3 concepts for 520 Northwood Road in response to our ITN that we released. And to give you a brief timeline, in October of 2018, we received an unsolicited proposal from GHRE Investments. In order to entertain that, we did have to issue an ITN, in which we received 0 responses. And then we reissued that in April 2019, based on the CRAB recommendation, we received an additional 2 responses. I'm going to briefly go over those 3 proposals. GHRE Investments, their offer was $10,000. They're open to discussion as far as what the CRA can offer them in addition. Their construction costs are estimated between $138,000 to $245,000. Their project timeline, they own the adjacent property at 522 and 524 Northwood Road. They're waiting for city permits, so they would like to see the completion of these projects around the same time. Their proposed use is a holistic healing center, and they do not currently have a tenant. This is just an idea of how they would like the exterior to look like. Skunk Works LLC, their offer was $15,000. Based on their initial building inspection, they're not requesting any assistance. Their construction costs are about $137,800. They're hoping, their project timeline is to have construction to be completed within 8 months of permit approval. Their proposed use is a brewery and tap room, and it would be an expansion of Skunk Works Barrel House LLC, which is right across the street, and they should be opening at the end of August. And here is a rendering of what it would look like on the outside. And finally, the third was Day by Day Shop. Their offer was a $10 via quick claim deed transfer. They are not asking any additional financial support, maybe down the road a facade and exterior grant. Their construction costs are estimated at $124,000. Their project timeline is within 4 months. Their proposed use is retail. They would be, Day by Day Shop would be moving from across the street where they've been for 3+ years. This is to give you an idea of how their current shop is across the street. Our recommendation is to award Skunk Works LLC the property located at 520 Northwood Road. The CRA Advisory Board did agree with our recommendation. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Commissioner Schoaf?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I was just wondering, amongst the applicants, I know some of these applicants have existing shops of varying kinds. What kind of support have we offered to each one of the applicants in the way of either facade grants or economic development grants, other city or CRA support, if you know of any on the city side?
The Skunkworks Brewery has not applied for anything for the CRA financially. Day by Day, I don't believe they did. If it was, it might have been before my time. And then the owner at GHRE, they did apply for a facade and exterior improvement grant for 522 and 524 Northwood Road.
Is it, and Chris, I see, can you speak to anything on the city side?
Chris Rugg, Director of Economic Development for the city. None of the applicants have applied or received any grant dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Neering?
Thank you, Madam President. Thanks for your presentation. So of the 3 applicants, Day by Day has a current business. I think I read 3 years that they have been in business and wanted to move across the street. Is that how I understand?
Correct. They currently have a lease, so they are looking to purchase 520.
Sure. And both the CRA Advisory Board and the CRAB recommended moving forward with Skunkworks LLC. Were there overarching themes or reasons versus the other 2?
I think it was their offer and their proposed use was more in line with what the CRA was looking for. I don't know if you want to.
Madam President, Commissioner, if I could, we had a lively discussion among the CRAB board at this meeting. As a matter of fact, staff's first pass at a recommendation was, as we indicated, the Skunkworks proposal. However, the co-chairman, the vice chairman of the CRAB board was in favor of of another proposal, and in fact made the motion to approve that. That motion died for lack of a second, and there was a great discussion among all parties attending about the merits of what one wanted to do versus another, sort of a thing, and it came down to this vote at the end. But it was a good discussion. And as I indicated, the CRAB didn't support our recommendation initially either. So I'd have to say they considered it thoroughly.
What is the difference between a barrel house and a brewery?
And the owner actually isn't here to elaborate. He's absent, but basically, I think it's the way that they're barreling their beer, and they're going to have tastings right out front of it.
You don't mean outside on the sidewalk?
No. They're going to have a retail section up front where you can have tastings in
At the
front of
barrel
the barrel
house.
house. Yes.
Okay. And the brewery is, I understand, not currently open, but
They're looking to open at the end of August if all goes well with permitting. Yes, they're not currently open.
Madam President, it's our understanding that they've gone through the process. They're in building now, and their permitting process.
Yes.
Apparently, it's taken some amount of time to do that, and that seems to be a fairly common complaint from a lot of these brewers. This is a new concept for the city and the building department, and so it's taken them a while to figure out how to deal with them, apparently.
I have a question.
I would suggest to you that the difference in a brewery and a barrel house is that a brewery would be where they make the beer, the big still pot kettles, whatever they make them in, sort of a thing. A barrel house would be where they are aging it. It's
Yes.
in barrels, and you could serve from the barrels, as opposed to you could not serve from the manufacturing piece. So that's probably the difference. One is a manufacturing driven kind of a thing, and the other would be more of an entertainment sort of a thing.
so by that, the brewery won't be selling beer, I guess, for consumption on site?
Yes, they will.
Ma'am, I don't want to say that for anybody. They're here and they can speak for it. I was just trying to define what I thought the difference in the terms were, but
I was just trying to determine if it's the exact same thing across the street from one another or not. I just didn't know.
well, I believe the proposer,
No,
are they here?
he's not in town.
All right.
unfortunately, but from what he proposed in his proposal, it should be two different things, the barrel house versus the brewing. But yes, they will both serve beer and tastings.
Okay. Commissioner Neary?
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I realize we're here today to either approve or not approve Skunk Works LLC. My question is, of the three, there was one who has been in business, I think, for 3 years. Was the thought, and I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, was the thought by moving their location would be a better opportunity? I'm specifically talking about day by day.
Yes.
Was the thought of moving their location moving their current location to this new location would be better, you know, obviously for their business, or?
I believe that was their thought. They are here. But I believe because they're leasing right now, so they wanted more stock in the business, so they wanted to purchase the building rather than having a lease.
Sure. And of the three, they are the one who has been in business for 3 years currently?
Yes, the first one, GHRE, they're property owners, so they're not a business.
All right.
So yes.
Okay.
Madam President, Commissioner, if I could, yeah, Day by Day is a wonderful retailer. They've been in business for a number of years. As a matter of fact, Will, one of the co-owners, is the president of the business association for the Northwood Village. So they've certainly been good neighbors and good merchants there. And I think probably the advantage, as we all would, is they would rather own than rent. So I applaud their desire.
Thank you.
Commissioner Peduzzi?
Thank you, Madam President. I just trying to get it, to go back to a previous question. I'm just trying to get a handle on the thought process. You said it was a lively discussion. During that discussion, how important was the monetary offer, you know, in the decision-making process? Was that controlling? Was that, or did we really take a hard look at the types of businesses that you know, made proposals and what would fit in best? You could just give me a little better idea of how important that was in the process, the monetary.
Madam President, Commissioner, the money's not a factor. I mean, we're talking about a spread of $10,000. It's not a deciding factor at all. The question was, what is the greatest public benefit? What is going to be the attraction that will draw the most traffic there? What is the most unusual offering for it? So, and that's where the discussion centered around it. We'll have the same retail store moving across the street, significant benefit for them, no new attraction for the village, versus something new and had the promise of more foot traffic perhaps in Skunk Works, and the other facility they didn't see that was going to really bring much traffic in the way of traffic to the village, I think was the discussion with them. Plus, they own, it went both ways. The folks that had proposed the first proposal own a number of properties there. They own the building at the corner of 25th and Broadway, where there's a pizza place and some other things. They've been great. Again, they have also been great long-term owners. They maintain the buildings fairly well. They completely redid the building at 25th and Broadway some years ago. I think the thought process was just they like the product.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question to your comments. Mr. Ward, I have a follow-up question.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned foot traffic, and I was just on Northwood Road this weekend for a grand opening there. And I see, you know, new businesses opening there. I see existing businesses doing well there, but I know that we still have work to be done in
Yes.
that area.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about like what makes up, you know, a good mix of retail and restaurants, and do you have a formula that you're striving for here?
Madam President, you know, that's always an interesting concept, and it varies from destination to destination. But the question is, what makes a good destination, and it is a good mix of retail trades. So I want to go somewhere and spend hours shopping with a variety of things. So that means that chances are, if we had 12 dress stores in the same place, it might be a great destination for a dress store, but it's not a very interesting shopping location. So if that were the one item that were for sale, so we would look for a variety of things. We have a list of criteria that we followed and the board followed in evaluating this, and it actually speaks to some of that. It mentions provides innovative concepts, provides a substantive economic impact to Northwood Village, compatibility with existing proposed zoning regulations, and provides a successful retail attraction. And we looked at, they looked at all of those variety of things in evaluating it. So, you want restaurants, you want retail shops, you want service people. That's a lot of the reason, for instance, that for years along Clematis Street, we didn't allow, for instance, offices because of the lack of foot traffic that they proposed. Doctors' offices, CRA, accountants, CPAs don't typically generate the kind of foot traffic that you would out of a very active restaurant, bar, or the best, motorcycle shop in town, or whatever it is, bicycles, that sort of thing. Just, we'd want to see a great variety of them, but somebody that was generating some traffic.
Commissioner Schoaf.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, I think one of the things that Northwood Road has been looking for has been traffic activation, and we've seen a lot of stores come and go. And so what I would like to see as the best use for this is something that's tried and true. And I had asked a semblance of this in agenda review, and I just wanted to kind of further that to say, I certainly don't like to be in the position to choose small businesses, because I think we're looking at 3 great applications here, any which would be a great addition. But what I don't want to see is a business come in and go back out the door. So what kind of guarantees do we have that we're not, taking this bite out of the apple and going with a business who, ensuring that whoever we pick for this building is going to be able to perform in a certain amount of time? Because I think the other thing that's really important is timing. We don't want to take months and months and months waiting for a business to come in. So how quickly can we activate? What kind of guarantees do we have if there's a non-performance on some of the agreement?
I think, that would be something maybe the city attorney could.
Well, obviously, we feel the same way. I mean, we'd want to see somebody that came in that had the ability to pay the bills and stay in business and was a sustainable business.
And I was simply going to say that tonight is the selection process, and those terms are things that you're interested in making sure that there's assurances would be brought out during the negotiation portion of the deal that would come back to you.
Right.
All right, we have a couple of cards, if there's no other comments or questions right now. I have 2 cards from, one from Matt Chambers and Laura Morola.
By the way, John, I seconded it. It was a great event this weekend. Old Northwood came out in big support.
Awesome, thank you.
Madam President, Commissioners, I hope you all received Will's email he sent out to all of you, and so I'll kind of spare you what he wrote in there. But I understand any decisions you make on this day has never come easy, and I'm sure today's decision will be no different. So I just felt the need to say this today, so I'm just going to read my writing here to you today. I said, I would like to add that Day by Day Shop has been in business for 3 years in Northwood Village, currently operating on a month-to-month basis, not a lease basis. Investing your time and resources in a business without a lease is very risky. However, Will, my husband, and I have decided that we're passionate enough about Northwood Village that we were going to continue to make that investment. So we have decided to stay there and also apply for this building. To show our passion, in fact, when Main Street disbanded a few years ago, we had a lot of hope in Main Street. There was some good financing behind it to really help boost the area. But Main Street disbanded, and quickly after that, the Merchants Association disbanded as well. People were really giving up. Will Davis went door to door to merchants to get organized again, to bring the board, the Merchants Association back together. And in fact, today, that board is probably stronger than it has been in the last few years, with a lot of, and including some of the people here today that have put proposals in are also on the board. Day by Day Shop has supported every single CRA event, both with our talents and finances. We helped in hopes of increasing the traffic and bettering Northwood Village. Will Davis runs the store by himself 6 days a week. People love this shop. We put a proposal in for the INF so we could invest in owning our own building, and we can maintain staying there and put some other investments. In fact, in our proposal, it wasn't just moving the business. The space was bigger. We did mention the fact that maybe we would have availability space for pop-up shops for somebody who wanted to test the waters. That wasn't mentioned anywhere today or the CRAB meeting, so I just thought I needed to bring that up because that wasn't our proposal. As John said, the INF Section 2, the number one on Section 2 was the proposal was to provide an innovative concept to provide substantial economic impact in Northwood Village and a successful retail strategy. I believe Day by Day has proposed that by moving with an existing business into that space and now being operated where we can make some more investments and know we're going to be there long term. The business that was being approved was talking about an expansion of a business that's not open yet. Do I believe they will open? Do I believe they've been trying? They're great guys. I think they are. But it has not been open. And to me, I'm not sure exactly what Barrel House meant, but Barrel House to me meant more storage than it did tap room. And if it is tap room, that means another liquor license, and I don't even know what the legality is on that. But we believe that we need a good mixture of retail and restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
Good afternoon. I will third that and say that I know that former Mayor Jerry Moya was dancing because I was dancing with her. Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. My name is Laura Maroll, and I'm here to speak in support of the reconsideration of the CRA recommendation for the sale of 520 Northwood Road. In my opinion, as a resident of Old Northwood, there's a paramount need for people to view Northwood as a destination. Moving an existing viable and thriving owner-operated business, who, as Matt said, at this time is working without a lease, into their own building, would provide foot traffic visitors with an established retail space to patronize. We need to address the turnover, as Commissioner Schoaf said, of business and ensure a viable business model is moved into this opportunity to expand their business. The recommendation of the CRA would do nothing other than provide a brand new business with no history of profitability, with a space that sounds like a brewing space or potentially a barrel storage, thus not utilizing the storefront for its true potential in attracting visitors and foot traffic, and possibly putting our hopes into a new business thriving versus an established one expanding. The Commission should use this opportunity to instead think about changing this space to encourage a possible artistic collective, as well as visitors to stroll the streets of our village, with the likelihood even of benefiting even more businesses along the boulevard along their way. Let me just take a moment to speak about the outstanding desire to better the community that the owners of Day by Day have. As longtime community leaders, the owners of Day by Day put community viability and sustainability as their daily mission. One even being the president of the Northwood Merchant Association. Matt kind of stole my thunder on that one. And additionally serving on a newly formed committee as in the administration of Mayor James. In my opinion, the wisest decision is for this commission to hear the proposal recommendation of the owners of Day by Day and their outstanding plans for this integral storefront on Northwood Road. Thank you.
Additional questions, or is that for this? Oh, okay.
And another one. Just an observation from looking on. This building has been sitting, I believe, empty for a good long while. That was given to the CRA, the city, by the post office. Am I correct about that? And I know you can't answer me, but I'm just throwing that out there. And we've just recently given another property away for no money to a developer who's untried on Broadway because of workforce housing, et cetera. So I think it should be looked at that this came to us as a gift, and what would be the most wise investment for a business that's already in play and active in the community vis-a-vis somebody brand new. So with the day-by-day shop, you have a known quantity. And the others, I'm not saying that they're not good. Obviously, one of the proposals just is an investor who rents out spaces to businesses, so we would have no idea what would be going there. And then, so I just guess my concern as a citizen would be, are we feeding the horse while it's already running, or are we buying one we haven't seen yet? And with that, letting day-by-day purchase the property at a minimal cost is a reinvestment in the community, and one that gives a small business owner an opportunity that really doesn't cost us anything. The property didn't cost us, so we're not giving away what we bought. So that's my observation.
Thank you. Commissioner Schoaf?
Thank you, and thank you to everybody for coming out. We clearly have some interested parties and applicants, and Mr. Wood, I understand that the recommended party couldn't be here today. I wish they were to answer some of these questions. Have they provided a statement or anything that we can review from this commission?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Neering?
Thank you, Madam President. You know, this is a similar, not quite apples to apples, but a similar conversation that we had on this dais, and it was regarding the expansion of subculture versus bringing in a pretty established and well-known business. And my comment then and tonight, it remains the same. I think there's something to be said about doubling down and supporting proven entities. I don't think, and again, much like Commissioner Schoaf, I empathize with whatever the situation that kept the applicant away tonight, but I would have loved to heard a presentation or some answers to questions. But I said all that to say, again, I go back to the track record. I go back to the fact that we know what we're getting, in my opinion, with day by day. And I would support. Well, I'll hold off on what I'll support, but I think the question at hand really for me is what's the best return on investment? And I think it's clear based on these three. To me, it's clear. And I want to say this last thing. I do respect the CRA Advisory Board, CRAB, and all the work that they do in our community, and don't take their opinion lightly. But those are my thoughts.
Yes, Ms. Rothenberg?
I do have to, for your record, bring up an issue that was brought to my attention. I received a copy of a communication from one of the proposers that was directed to at least one commissioner addressing support for one of the recommended bidders. That communication is counter to the anti-lobbying provision in your code, and also it is in violation of the specific solicitation itself. That subjects that particular proposer to the review by the procurement official for disqualification from this process.
You didn't say which one?
It's day by day.
Given the conflict that I feel is kind of present here now, and then that new conflict, would we be able to make a motion to table this vote and reissue an RFP?
Madam President, we can do whatever you want to do. Yes. Can we do that? Certainly we can do that. If you're not happy with the results of any RFP, ITN sort of thing, then I believe, unless there's some legal reason for not doing it, we could certainly do that.
Commissioner Schoaf, you had a comment?
I would just like to clarify with legal on exactly what that means, because we're in an ITN versus an RFP. Correct.
The anti-lobbying provisions are applicable to all of your solicitations, and the anti-lobbying provision was specifically in this solicitation also, and it subjects the proposer to disqualification for having violated the code and the anti-lobbying ethics provisions contained within the code. If you were to put this back out on the street, they would not be able to participate in being a part of the selection because you've withdrawn one and put it back out for them.
So if I understand that correctly, what you're saying is, even if we postponed this vote, day by day would not be able to reapply if we put out the same
It's not,
IT?
it wouldn't be a postponing the vote. It
Or-
would be withdrawing the ITN, and that you can't withdraw an ITN for the purpose of putting out the exact same thing to include somebody who's been excluded because of a disqualification.
Is Commissioner Neering?
So here's my concern as 1/5 of the commission. And again, I don't know the situation. It might have been an emergency. The applicant isn't here. I have questions, and the applicant isn't here, so I'm not.
That's different. That's different from
No, I wanna- that-
withdrawing.
that's
But
why I'm
if you
bringing
want to
it up.
table it to bring it back,
No,
so that
that's-
you have presentations, we can certainly do
No,
that.
I mean, that's not, I'm open to that. I mean, but I want to be clear. I'm okay with making a decision tonight as well, but I feel, somewhat shorthanded. I think staff has done a good job in trying to answer the questions, but, and I'm talking specifically to skunk words, because that's what staff is recommending. That's what the advisory boards have recommended. And I have questions, and I don't think they've been answered, per se.
Is Commissioner Schoaf?
Procedurally, for the city attorney, when we say subject to review for disqualification, so they would be subject to review, be reviewed by procurement official, and Mr. Hayden, maybe you'll clarify a little bit of that, what that process entails, and what the qualifications would be to either meet or not meet that standard?
Yes, ma'am. Frank Hayden, Director of Procurement. We would take a look at the language that existed in the solicitation that went out. We'd take a look at the communication that came in as related to that. And then we'd also have some discussion with our legal department in terms of whether or not it met the threshold. I will say this, and as long as I've been here, and it's many of these things that I've dealt with, while this commission or anyone else is making a decision about a solicitation, an ITB, or whatever, that there should be no communication from the outside with you that might influence you in terms of making that decision. And so with that in mind, after we took a look at everything, then, like I said, conferring with legal, we'd make a recommendation whether or not that individual violated what our policy is here at the city.
So to follow up, tonight's decision is about what this board feels is the best use for this building, and whatever that use is will be reviewed afterwards depending upon the recommendation put forward to make sure that applicant, whomever that is, followed correct procurement procedures, correct? So tonight is about the decision, and post-decision would be for any applicant to ensure that everything was followed correctly, paperwork in line.
I'd say yes.
Okay, thank you.
I had to rerun all that through my mind. So.
Okay, no more discussion. Is there a motion to be entertained? Hearing no motion, I guess this item does not move forward.
If you have no motion,
Then we move on.
there's no direction to move forward with any of the proposers.
Okay. All right. Interesting days when the mayor's not here. We're moving on to, let's see, item 4 we pulled from the agenda. Moving on to item number 5. And Mr. Ward, just given the time that we have until we start the city commission agenda, I'm just doing a time check with you. If you'd like to continue with item 5, any advice or suggestions here, given our time?
Well, Madam Chairman, I've got 19 minutes to go. I have an idea that there's going to be a lot of discussion on the item. I don't believe we can do it in that quickly. I will tell you that I've got, well, doesn't matter. If we're going to have a hard stop at 5 o'clock, I would be surprised if we could handle this item. If you'd like to continue it to the next meeting, we can do that.
So I would propose that we move on maybe to item number 6, get that one taken care of now, and then it doesn't look like the commission agenda is very lengthy. We could probably come back and finish item number 5 after the commission agenda. Are there any comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Shove?
If I may, I know that there's a number of people from the public that would like to speak on that agenda item, and I think that either this commission needs to move forward with that item now or table it and review it at a subsequent meeting, just to give everyone fair comment. Thank you.
Sure, and also, Ms. Rothenberg, procedural question here. Do we have to start the city commission meeting at 5, or could that be delayed to go ahead and finish this meeting?
You're supposed to start the commission meeting at 5.
Madam President,
Commissioner Neering?
can I recommend that we start on the item and we continue it after the commission meeting? We're not going to finish by 5, but I think we start on the item now. We have 18 minutes and come back to the item after the commission meeting as an option, unless we continue it all together, but as an option.
So it sounds like there's 2 options. One would be to start now and pause at 5 o'clock and continue it after the commission agenda. The second would be, another option would be to not have it today, move it to another agenda item, agenda meeting. John, is there any timeliness to this offer that we need to see it today if the motion was to carry it to another CRA meeting?
Madam Chair, it's a real estate deal like anybody else's real estate deal. Time is always of the essence. I've got a willing seller and a contract. Having said that, I don't believe that the seller is going to abandon me. I don't know that there are any backup offers on the facility, so I don't think it's going anywhere, no. It's just, I don't think it'll affect anything, no ma'am.
Okay. Hearing all that info, any other discussion on this? And I guess the other question I have is there a motion?
Discussion.
Yes.
You've mentioned that there's people here, a lot of people here potentially that would like to be heard on this matter. They're here today. Is there any way of doing as Commissioner Neering suggested, where maybe we start and allow that some public comment for the people that are here at least today, so they don't have to come back on another date?
Ms. Rothenberg, do we need to make a motion to do that, or do we just start and then stop?
You can start your item with the public comment. I mean, take the comments first for those who can't come back again.
Right.
Did you have a comment, Commissioner Schoaf?
Yes, if I may, I wouldn't recommend moving forward with public comment first. I believe that there's a presentation that we should have and follow procedures so that everyone has their fair say. That being said, we're discussing and losing valuable time. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, if I may. Commissioner Neering, did you have a comment?
Nope, just that we're losing time, whatever we're going to do.
I'm going to go ahead and motion to move forward with this agenda item and continue after City Commission if necessary.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll move on to, motion carries. We'll move on to item number 6, and then we'll come back to this item after the commission agenda. So item number 6 is resolution number 19-30, approving a grant in the amount not to exceed $20,000 under the Paint, Pave, and Plant Grant Program between the West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency and Lucille B. Washington for improvements to the property located at 806 7th Street, West Palm Beach, Florida.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Commission. Thank you for taking this case. Mrs. Washington, we would be very happy for you to consider this. Let me first begin with making a quick correction. In the title bar of this item, which is the actual resolution, it refers to Pleasant City, but this is actually the downtown CRA, specifically the subdistrict of the Northwest. If we could make that note for the resolution. You see that? It's okay? Okay. All right, real fast. Won't take more than 2 seconds. So this property is located in the historic Northwest. Ms. Lucille Washington is a long-term resident in the Northwest. We have had on occasion to collaborate with Habitat for Humanity under their Brush with Kindness program. And Habitat did, in fact, let me just get to this. Habitat did, in fact, work with us to do some painting and some upgrades to her property. We're looking now to use the Paint, Pave, and Plant program essentially to do, or to finish the product basically, to do some roofing work on Mrs. Washington's home, as well as remove some invasive species in her front yard. For the record, the subject location is in the Northwest District, which is a sub-district of the downtown CRA. The subject property, again, is located at 806 7th Street. And as I indicated, the grant program provides for 100% funding of the project costs not to exceed $20,000. We believe that this rehabilitation will be a complement to the streetscape along 8th Street. Sorry. This project scope, again, will be limited to a new roof with decorative dimensional shingle, and we'll be removing an invasive Australian pine, as well as replacing some window screens. Again, backing up, we have in the past partnered with Habitat for Humanity, and these are just representative of some of the projects we've done in the past. Finally, this is a picture of Mrs. Washington's home. As you can see, the Habitat has already painted it, and we're going to be doing some minor upgrades to the landscaping there. With that, to residential improvement, we're projecting the cost to be around $16,000, but we're asking that the commission approve the grant not to exceed $20,000. And Mrs. Washington has asked me to say thank you on the record.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, we'll entertain a motion for, or a motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 19-30.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, do we need to read? This is, okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll convene the CRA meeting. Oh, okay, we're going to start it now. Okay. All right, great. Move to item number 5. Okay. This is resolution number 19-27, authorizing the purchase of 314 Clematis Street for the development of the 12 by 12 pop-up to rent program and thoroughfare.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, I've got a very brief presentation before you today to make to clarify the CRA's position in this and to recommend to the public. We've had a number of comments in the past that said things like, gee whiz, this is a real estate deal, and why is the city in a real estate program, and all this kind of thing. And I would suggest to you that the very nature of the redevelopment agency is the real estate deal. We are in the real estate business and have always been in the real estate business. That is the business that we're in. And I wanted to point out to you, to the audience for their information, the Florida statutes that specifically call out what the mission of the agency is. And I can show you here under Florida Statute 163-370, it illustrates the powers for counties, municipalities, and community redevelopment agencies. And then Section 2 indicates that every county and municipality shall have all of the powers necessary or convenient to carry out and effectuate the purposes and provisions of this part, including the following powers, in addition to those herein granted. And so the next section, Section 2, shows you that it is the power of this agency to acquire by purchase, lease, option, gift, grant, bequest, device, or other voluntary method of acquisition any personal or real property together with improvements therein. That is our job, to acquire those parcels. And the next section says to hold, improve, clear, or prepare for redevelopment any such property. And the last section says to mortgage, pledge, hypothecate, or otherwise encumber or dispose of any real property. So what this is telling you, it is the mission of this agency in furtherance of the improvement of the district to acquire property, to improve property, to sell property. And in point of fact, I will point out to you, and I neglected to put a slide up on it specifically, but section 163.380 goes further to say that not only can we acquire and improve and sell and develop property as an agency, but it also says in 163.380 section 2, it says, in determining the value of real property as being in the public interest for uses in accordance with a community redevelopment plan, the county, municipality, or community redevelopment agency shall take into account and give consideration to the long-term benefits to be achieved by the county, municipality, or CRA, resulting from incurring short-term losses or costs in the disposal of such real property. It also covers this in 370 a little earlier, but what that's telling you is that CRAs oftentimes come into areas and do things in an unusual manner, in a manner that would not be typically something that the private sector would do. That's one of the reasons for the creation of the agencies, and as such, it stands a chance of losing money. It may not be that fully profitable. We don't have what it's telling you is that we don't have a profit motive at the heart of what we do. We are not in the retail business. We are in the redevelopment business. We are here to do a project that has a significant effect or an impact for the public good in the things that we do. So the consideration of, I bought it for $1 and I sold it for 50 cents, may not go anywhere in the public sector, because that's obviously that's not their reason for existence. But in point of fact, if we come into an area and we pay $1 for a piece of property, it makes a significant difference and change in the nature of that property. It helps us get to a goal that the city has established, such as the redevelopment of Clematis Street, like we're doing now with the streetscaping and the alleyway work and everything else. And if we happen to incur a loss when we disposed of the property, that is not only allowable, it is proper, because it is part of the mission of the agency. And I wanted to point out to the public again and remind our commissioners that we have been doing this for a while, and this is a great example of one of the real estate deals that we're involved in, probably the most significant one right now. And here's the Sunset that we asked for an update on a while ago. And you can see the classic building on the left and the 7,000 square foot addition on the right that we're going to put in there. I will tell you that this project will probably be a $12 to $13 million investment on the part of this agency. We have budgeted for it. You will see in your next budget funds in next year's budget to finish the project. We're already in midstream on it. And it is a significant project that will make, along with the addition of the other projects around it, an incredible difference in that community, I would suggest to you. Next to it, you can see that's the Sunset at the top above the green square, and the green square is the park. We're going to spend several millions of dollars developing the park. And below that, the brown squares are an alleyway development that we're going to develop for a series of, I think I've got the next slide, of these kinds of economic development, small facilities for local retailers in there. So this is great examples of how we are in the development business. Here's a slide of Drama Works. Again, on Clematis Street, at a time where no one would build a theater. Oh, we think it'd be a good idea, somebody ought to do it one day. This agency stepped out, purchased the building, mortgaged it to Drama Works. They have subsequently paid off the mortgage to us, I want to say 3.5 or 4 years ago. But that's an example of going somewhere and doing something that nobody thought made sense, and nobody would do it in the private sector. We did it, and I would suggest that there's no one in this building that thinks the addition of DramaWorks is a bad thing on Clematis Street. And I think as my final example to you, this is a former bank building at Olive and Datura. You may remember it. I can't recall if it was a Bank of America or something, but it was that real 60s interesting looking design that everybody thought, oh my gosh, when is someone going to finally do something with that? In combination with our economic development department, we went and had conversations with the Sterling Group. We have acquired the complete redevelopment of the building, 65 new jobs, and this agency invested $500,000 in making that happen. So when you add that up with things like the Frank Navarro project right now that's being built, the waterfront hotel and a block of apartments, we went and had the zoning changed from 5 to 8 floors to make it a profitable endeavor for them. This agency took down Old City Hall at the cost of about $1,200,000, and we're giving $1 million in incentive tax increment abatement for that project. So I would suggest to you that this agency has a long and proud history of doing these kinds of projects. It is our job to try and look ahead and help the city achieve the goals that we've set as a board. It's our job then to make that happen. So that's what we intend to do at 314 Clematis. I would suggest to you that my discussion tonight has to do with a real estate deal and not what are you going to do in the space, or is it going to succeed, or what kind of retailers are you going to put in there. But the thing for you to consider is, having seen the kinds of things that we've done in the past, I would suggest to you that we think this is a good investment for this agency to go in. We know that we will hold it for a period of time, whatever is appropriate. We will redevelop it. We will tie it in with the alleyway improvements that are supposed to start either this month or next month. And I think it will be a significant improvement for the 300 block of Clematis. And I would suggest to you further that the proof of this concept is that without mentioning any names, an owner on the 500 block of Clematis has already approached us with another similar building, very large, that they want to break up, chop into smaller spaces and all this sort of thing, and they wanted to know if a grant would be available from this agency to assist them in doing that, and the answer is yes, it would be. As I have illustrated to you before, the purchase of this building from bond funds has absolutely nothing to do with our ability through our TIF financing to offer grants to all businesses that would be appropriate and that would be approved by this board. So I would suggest to you that the proof of the concept is that we're already just hearing about it has encouraged the private sector to come to us and say, that sounds like a good idea, let's do that. Now that will help the 500 block, it will not help the 300 block. So we are suggesting to you that we move forward with this project, and I would suggest to you that tonight you consider this a real estate deal. We can get into the weeds with all the other stuff at your leisure. Believe me, by the time this is finished, you will have heard more than you ever wanted to hear about the retailers and the design and everything else like that. And the question before you is, we are asking permission to move forward with the purchase of 314 at the agreed upon price of $7.5 million.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. And given the time, we will reconvene on this matter after the commission agenda, after the commission meeting. This meeting is adjourned until that time. Thank you.